Uh, yeah. Hi, Vardha. Hi, Sandeep. Hi, Vim. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let's wait for another 2 minutes, then we will start. Hi, Task. We are just waiting for another couple of minutes so that folks could join. So we are waiting for it.
Sure, yes, and I apologize. I have a hard stop in 30 minutes. It's only for today.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
And I do know Bernard will not be able to join, right? I think he's on sick leave.
Yes, yes. We got that.
Too bad there's not service assurance for human health.
Right.
Automatically fix yourself when when you perform less than.
Yeah, actually, our body is made for it to take action towards our health.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's probably some medical theory that treats the body as a
Yes.
group of systems.
Okay. So let's start today's meeting. So hello everyone. So I hope recording is on. Let me confirm it. Yeah, it is happening. So I'll share my screen, and I have prepared some agenda for today, so we can go through it. Um, okay. Okay. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, looks good.
Okay. Sure. So today I have planned three topics for the agenda. So the first one, actually last week we had a very good discussion. So before going on agenda, I'll just give a quick recap of what we did last week. So we were discussing about our scope, and we finalized the scope, and everyone agreed on it. Also, we discussed on our user story. So that is about uh, impact analysis, and we also are planning to implement it, and so we have a certain ways to implement it. So last time actually we were discussing with the BIM how we could approach it. So there are possibly two ways. Either we can go to implement a framework, then come to the use case. Else we can follow the user story, and accordingly we decide our framework. So these two approaches are there. So we need to decide on it, and today actually we don't have I think sufficient inputs on it to discuss on it. So this was some quick recap. Um, and also we wanted to discuss on the topology controller work. So that could be our base work, reference work, where we could refer and start the implementation part. So I'll jump on the agenda. So today I planned the last topic that we wanted to discuss from the last meeting, the policy, how we would like to position the policy, how it could be a part to realize the action mechanism in the service assurance. So that is the one. Another topic, the synergy between service assurance and the observability group. Observability group are doing work to collect some of the KPI parameters, and definitely we need to be in sync with the observability group so that we can provide an input to them and they can collect those parameters and we can realize some use case using observability. So it is very important we work together and we able to form the end-to-end framework. And the last 30 minutes we will dedicate for the topology controller work, so that Stephen will explain what he did during the R1 and also what he's planning for the R2. So that could be a good reference point for us to go on the designing the assurance part. And Stephen will join after 30 minutes due to his own personal commitments. Okay, so let's start with our first topic, or any topic, or items we would like to add. We could add it. Feel free to add it. Otherwise, we'll go to the first topic. Okay, I'll take this silence as a no, and let's directly jump on our first topic, the policy as an action mechanism for the service assurance. Um, so I'll just go to the document what exactly I was thinking, and what I was we were presenting in the Netfio meetup. Okay. So if my screen is visible, so this yellow box, we could visualize as a visualize as a assurance system, which should be having some logic for the correlation and there will be observability, and it will do the correlation and I visualize like the assurance system will have some logic so that he can compute some policies and it can introduce to workload cluster level, or also I feel if it's a required we can push the policy at the higher level, so that policy become a mechanism to take any action. So what exactly I mean by the policy? So policy could be realized as a one CRD definition, and where we are using that we can put a certain constraint or a certain logics here, so that we can take a action at the closest to NF. Otherwise, we can realize something at the management cluster also, or there could be some other mean. And policy, I also visualize like some policies related to OPA policies, some technology specific policies, or or Cube Armor. We can take advantage of Cube Armor framework to take some runtime activity. So that is a technology specific thing. So that is a very high level picture I'm trying to put it, so that we can formulate what exactly the policy mean to us. So I'm opening this stage for the comments on it. Actually, means what you feel, what should be the action mechanism for the service assurance, and if you have any comment on the policy, so we can discuss on it. So yeah, please let me know your thoughts also.
My hand is up, but Vince, I think, is first. So go ahead.
Yeah, Vince. Yeah.
Okay. I'm a bit surprised. So assurance, the first job with assurance is to add assurance interfaces for
Right.
external systems. So the first job is to export the information that is needed for assurance systems to do their job. Second, and that's a must, right? And then an option is to do some assurance. The priority is the assurance interfaces, and it's not acceptable to not have any external interfaces. Like it rules out any end-to-end assurance, right? So that's the priority. Am I missing something?
Vince, you're right. Actually, I should have gone to our. Okay, I'll just show like what we had discussed in our last meeting. So I'm just extending that topic so that to cover our action mechanism. So this particular slide actually convey the objective for the service assurance. So I'll just go one by one on each of the items of what we decided. So a set of reference use case related to service assurance. So what we are believing we will deliver. So we will work towards a use case which will do the job of which will fulfill the requirement of service assurance and the basic concept of how Nephew will support these use cases. So in the Nephew, we'll find different functionalities, right? So we would try to ensure that those functionality we will able to identify and also deliver these use cases and fulfill the assurance in the Nephew. The functional element which Nephew will make use of and for these use cases. So we talk about those functional element. So what things could be involved. So for example, you can have observability. So that is done by the observability group, and the correlation, and also some action mechanism we need to fulfill the requirement of assurance. So and the next one, interface specification between this element and the external component. I hope so your thoughts yeah, so your query was around this particular deliverable. So where we should talk about the specification, how we are going to interface with the external components, and we ensure the assurance happens end to end as sorry, I mean to say assurance happens in the Nephew. Yes, where for the services which managed by the Nephew, and also it offers certain APIs at the north, or it supports the assurance system at the north. So this we are visualizing as our deliverable, and I'm slightly just extending our discussion towards the action mechanism. So that's why I'm bringing the policy. So that was as left in our last discussion. Is it okay? Sounds okay?
Yeah, no, that's better. I might just add, if we can host the functions provided by external systems to complete closed loop control, that would be optional, but it would be quite good. You know what I mean? So we can do our own interface specifications and we just ship it out, right? But if we can actually host a function and orchestrate that function and provide the execution of that function, then it can do the interfacing itself, and it can perform a number of things. That would be ideal, but again, optional.
Okay. Actually, we are open for the your comments. If you have certain ideas and you want to introduce something, maybe you can comment on this document, or you can present your ideas in further detail so that we can discuss on it. Would it be okay?
Certainly.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And
So
also, Yep, Taz. Yeah, Taz, please go ahead.
Yeah, I see Bernard's hand has arrived and his hand is up. So I'll be very brief. I'm agreeing with Vance here, but I want to point out that it's really that external interface is embedded in everything Nefio does. The whole configuration as data approach and having all our APIs being KRM means that we have entry points at every place for external systems. What we're missing, of course, is the observability part and closing the loop with actual status and data. And it might be also in a different place too, say Prometheus or other databases. So we are missing that part, but our basic approach is the same, a unified data model that can work everywhere, except, as I like to say, the devil is in the details. Subhash, could you go to the slide with the three control loops for a second?
Sure.
Right, but we can't poll for alarms, right? So
exactly, yeah. That's why I'm saying that we're yes, we need to go beyond KRM for observability data. Obviously, KRM is not designed for that. It's designed just for very simple status, right? But I wanted to point here another tiny aspect here. It's true that we have, KRM everywhere, but there are two places where it's available, right? Mostly, which is the management cluster and the workload cluster, right? So if we're dealing with the loop at 3, and as you pointed out, let's say or I think Subhash pointed out, let's say we want to change, let's say we have a policy engine running in, let's say it's open policy agent, just as an assumption. It's running in the workload cluster at the bottom here. And let's say it's detecting something and it applies a policy there by changing the CR already there in the workload cluster. Well, we do have an issue, and Wim here will be, well, I'm sure raise his eyebrow, where at least in our current configuration of Nefio, that CR is owned by the management cluster. So it's actually enforced by config sync, which is itself kind of a policy engine. Right. So let's say a policy engine at the workload cluster changes something in that CR. Well, config sync will change it back to whatever the design is supposed to be, right? Because that design has already been approved. So you kind of have to close a larger loop to do that. Now, that is very inefficient. So as I said, the devil is in the details about figuring that out. And once we have a real use case and scenario, we can really try to optimize that for our use case. But yeah, I'm probably jumping ahead a bit at showing what the problems can be, but yeah, anyway, Bernard has his hand up too, so please go ahead.
No, actually, I wanted to sort of also build upon your statements, which you've just been making. I believe that we need to talk about scopes. That means sort of there's service assurance mechanisms on different levels to be considered. And sort of in this picture, we are now sort of trying to bring together sort of various scopes. And I think we should try to very clearly specify sort of in which sort of loops or which domains these sort of service assurance mechanisms are to be applied. There are certain service assurance mechanisms which are within the network function itself. There are service assurance mechanisms which are related to the cluster, which is the workload cluster or the management cluster or even higher layers. And each of those elements, and each of those have sort of a set of sort of functions which contribute to the overall service assurance model. And I believe we should try to really sort of name those scopes, and based on then try to define how the functionalities which are of generic nature in the sense of how do we collect data, how do we correlate information, how do we derive actions out of that, then that we would then try to identify which sort of functions would sort of support those mechanisms. Am I confusing you, or is that understood?
To me, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm also okay. But Bernard, actually, I would like to put the thought around also about our action mechanisms. So, how would it be good idea to start exploring the policy if we can take a action using the policy? Generally, I see policy computes the action on a fly. So that's why I'm thinking it would be a good idea also to explore towards it. So
I think that's fine, but again, sort of, you always start with a foundation of functions which you believe are needed. And I would not simply sort of introduce a new concept without having this foundation of functions which we are then looking at. And if we say that sort of we've got a term like policy, then we should try to see, is this already covered by the basic functions which we are listing, or is that something new which we need to consider?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we try to identify the it's a functionalities also, right? Functional element. So I think yeah, here we are documented. So we should try to match it, right? If I understand correctly.
Yes.
And if something is missing, we should introduce.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I would like to have actually sort of, in order to capture that as a result, because in the objective we wanted to capture that, I would want to spend a dedicated page for that, and then have also the team here decide on, is that correct, or are we missing something, that we are sort of all on the same page of what kind of functions we believe are all contributing to the service assurance view. And then sort of this would be the foundation of talking about how would we potentially implement that in the different scopes which I've been mentioning before.
Yeah, of course, that is a good point. Actually, we should talk on this, like what design consideration we are thinking, and what the functional elements we are trying to identify in the service assurance. And if we see any gap, yeah, sure, we should add it. So shall we try to make a conclusion here, like if, just by going through it, and try to take a comment from everyone? Okay, I'll just read for everyone so that we get some conclusion out of it, or maybe comments. A function which describes the desired target state, qualities, objectives, constraint of the resource, or a set of resource. So here we are talking about functional module where we could capture our desired target state. So that seems like some CRD or some operator. Using that, we can capture the intent actually. And the second one, the function which describes which resource and services are subjected to service assurance mechanism, and how this relate one another. So some functional element which correlates the function element which understand how the resources are connected to each other. So here we mean to say we should have some kind of a relationship, and I feel like we need to introduce some graph that could be assurance graph, or that could be relationship graph. And third one, a set of function which captures the information regarding the current state and the qualities of the resource, and of course that is a observability. Using that, we can actually able to retrieve those KPI parameters and the current state of the system. The function which correlates and evaluates this state and qualities information determines if these are the discrepancies to the desired state. So some functional element which tries to get us the difference between current state and the desired state. So that we visualize as some correlation block, which will try to correlate the resource status, and try to see which high level intent are getting impacted, and a function which triggers the action on the orchestration solution on the same level or the lower level. So here we talk about the action mechanism, and there we also observe that we need to take action at multiple levels. So either we could support some higher level orchestration system, or maybe we need to introduce some local actions also we need to introduce. So those kind of mechanism we talk about it. So if you feel still any gaps are there, or any enhancement we can do, please feel free to comment on it. I hope I captured it correctly, Bernard.
Fine for me.
Your
And
thoughts.
again, the feedback is, we've got two hands raised. I'm not quite sure.
Yep. Sorry, I was not able to see. Okay, yeah. Please, Vim, go ahead. I hope you are the first.
Yeah, I'm a bit, let's say, confused as to what this design is about, right? Because the first thing I think I wanted to do is clarify the service assurance we are trying to address, because service assurance is a very big topic, right? My understanding of last time was we do service assurance for the intents that we operate upon. Are we aligned on that or not?
I think this is exactly the point which, sorry if I just jump in, exactly about the scoping. Yeah, because this what's written down here, you can do that for quality of cars, etc. So this is very, very generic from a design consideration.
Correct. Yeah? So that's why I'm trying to. Yeah, that's why I'm raising the question as to what we are trying to do, right?
And therefore, I believe we need to also agree upon the scoping. That was the remark which I made just before about to which domains do we apply these considerations. And then, of course, we can be very specific about the implementation. Mm-hmm. And we haven't agreed upon if it's only intent or if we want to also do service assurance for, let's say, scaling, auto healing or whatever. So I'm just inventing sort of scenarios here. But we should try to be very clear here in this group what the scope would be, where we would want to apply service assurance.
Even scaling and auto healing, in my view, is a part of the intent. Is within the intent.
Yeah, but again, sort of, let's be specific about that. What we mean.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is I think before going to this level of detail, we have to first discuss that, right? Because based on that,
I think to be honest, to be honest, I think these are also called orthogonal dimensions. Yeah, the one is about the basic mechanisms, sort of, which would be needed, and the other one is in which domain do we apply those mechanisms. Yeah, and therefore, I believe we need to sort of have a cross section of those elements where we say, yes, this is the part which we're going to take care of.
Yeah, well, so
yeah, what I feel, irrespective of what is the scope, these are the design considerations for service assurance. But yes, the scope will define what are those resources, right? And then the scope is decided. In fact, I also have the same question. Yeah, these are exactly the design consideration for any service assurance, but probably can we be more specific? Like, okay, yeah, design consideration is okay. Now, what are the resources we are targeting? What are the target states?
Yes. Actually, my opinion is like first we should discuss on the use case, and I think that use case will help us to define the exact resources or low level details, where exactly we need to focus. And I think slowly it will take shape, I feel.
Agreed. Yeah. But is it okay, like, whatever may be the scope, whatever may be the level, this is what the steps are. Am I right?
I agree with it. Yeah. Bernard, any comments? What do you think?
I think so too. But we could also start with a working assumption. So just let's imagine that we say, as a basic use case, we start with a working assumption from Wim. And we say it's all about the intent. Let's try to make sure that sort of when we're sort of defining a reference use case, we sort of do the reference use case for an intent and see how these steps then would be supported here.
Yeah,
do
right.
we actually have a list of intents that we have, Wim? Is there a list of intents that are there currently?
Yeah, I mean, you have a workload running in the workload cluster, right? And setting up a 5G core. So these are you can start at the lowest level, right?
But I'm saying, have we already identified which intents we've already? Is there a place that they can go find which intents have already been developed that already exist?
Yeah, so NF deployment, right? So we basically say here is a network function, and we have a certain capacity that we intended to be, right? So that's there.
Okay. So this is
now for that, for example. So let's say if you take the use case as scaling, right? So there is already a framework in Kubernetes that does that, right?
Okay.
So it will monitor. So it will monitor with some KPIs, and it will basically take action based on the information it gets. So that's a framework that exists within Kubernetes. And you can apply that towards the network function that we have. Yeah. That could be an intent.
Yeah. Wim, I'm just jumping the line. I'm just wanted to ask, what do you see, like if the other use cases we can realize based on the assurance apart from scaling? Miss, with the R1 reference, I'm just asking, like in R1 content, if we can do some kind of assurance system.
See, the first thing to do assurance, we need observability, right?
Right.
So without that, nothing is possible.
Yeah, perfect. We are not saying that, but we are saying, is it possible that we define some kind of generic framework on top of it and work towards it, and also pass the information to observability, like what exactly we need, so that we can do it, right? In order to achieve. So we can take that approach also.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in observability, we are focused on getting some statistics out of a network function.
Yeah,
that's what we are doing, and then make it available to an observability system. Basically, that's basically the scope of observability that we are discussing.
Yeah, Bernard.
Sandeep
Sandeep is there. Yeah, Sandeep. Sorry, keep you waiting. Sandeep?
Yeah. I mean, sorry. Sorry. This is my first meeting in here, so I have few doubts and clarifications. So sorry if I ask some basic questions. I mean, first of all, I just wanted to understand the kind of a thing which we're doing for the assurance. Is it the scope is just to define the use cases or define the framework, or also it goes into some sort of a implementation part as part of this working group activities? That is the first question.
Okay. Bernard, would you like to take, or?
So from my perspective, I believe the implementation part is not in the scope of this working group. It's just sort of making a proposal and aligning with the automation working group, for instance, regarding sort of implementation options. But it wouldn't be in the scope of coming up with implementation elements here in this activity, because I don't believe we don't have the developers here to sort of support that in a sufficient manner.
Yeah. So we are going to define some sort of framework, right, as part of this working group, that these are the elements in the near-future systems which are going to provide some sort of kind of a requirement, lower down the observability framework, and then observability will take some sort of a kind of a collection of the data and it will provide you. Are we going to provide some sort of an interface kind of a description also here? Because right now in observability, we haven't done that as of now. We are just focused on collection of the matrices and all those things and putting in some sort of a data lake. And we have not thought about any interfaces and providing this information to the above layer, maybe like a service assurance. So
those are the last 2 points of this objective slide here. Describe the functional elements and the interfaces between elements and external components.
Yeah, I'll be more interested in this one as of now, because we need to work on this, I think. Yeah, so
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, and one more point I had, but I think Wim asked that question, so I think I got that clarification. I think, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so if I may if you just would go back a little bit to this design consideration overview with the functional blocks, and I'll try to explain a little bit the journey which we could be going through.
Yeah.
Yes, or this other slide, which is
sure.
a bit larger. Yeah. So now, if I look at sort of what we have and what we haven't got yet. So as soon as we are sort of putting the information, the intent information into the management cluster, and Nefio then processes it and sort of hydrates it and makes sure that all the low-level resources are being then derived out of that. Basically, we already have sort of the first functional block available. Yeah, that means we have sort of a database which provides us with this information. And if we would want to now also think of quality assurance, could be that we need to extend that information with those aspects which are related to what kind of KPIs do we want to monitor, what kind of policies do we want to try to trigger, etc. But that would be sort of the addition which I could think of here regarding the first functional block. The second functional block is about making sure that the intent which has been defined can be correlated with the to be observed basic resources. And here the topology manager could help us here to say, look here, if you want to do any kind of correlation, I will give you all this topology information as needed. I can tell you sort of which elements relate to which intent. So that would be the second functional block. The third functional block would basically make use of the first two functional blocks and try to identify, these are the resources which I need to have a look at. And based on that, I would make use of sort of the KPI specifications, etc., set up the monitoring and logging capabilities accordingly, and make this information available via sort of interface which we still need to define. And so, as you see, we can gradually evolve sort of the capabilities which we need to address. So, first block would be: do we know how we want to capture the service assurance related information? Number two is, can we make use of the topology manager to derive the relationships between the intent and the low-level resources? Number three is, can we sort of automate the setup and sort of integration of the monitoring capabilities for those basic resources, etc. That would be currently my way of thinking of how I could potentially approach these topics in a sort of structured manner.
Yeah, one more question I had. Sorry. I mean, when we defining all these things, are we expecting some sort of component in Nefio to be developed out of this as part of this requirement, or?
So the two things. Yes, it could be that we develop sort of a component. For instance, topology manager might be one of those components where we say this is a helpful element which we could use as a foundation for further sort of functions. But it's not only about how should I say sort of the functional components. It's also about how do we structure our KRM models. Yeah, that means sort of could be that we say ideally, sort of we agree on a certain way of how we describe those elements, because otherwise we would have thousands of different ways of how we interpret this information, and the integration efforts would again be very high. So I would also aim for a little bit looking into recommendations regarding, ideally, if you could try to specify sort of the service assurance information also in a structured way, which makes it easy to process.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Actually, Sandeep, do you have any question? Because actually we invited Stephen, and we promised to give 30 minutes actually.
Yeah, please go
for
ahead.
the topology controller. Could we?
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we jump on the second and third item, and could we go to it?
No problem. No problem for me.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I think we all agree, the design consideration for service assurance is exactly what's captured there. Maybe some use cases may, identify, once we identify use case, we can go into the resource. And as what Bernard says, probably we can componentize, and further systematically approach these 5 components. Yeah. Let's go over for Stephen. Yeah.
Vince still has his hands up, so I don't know whether or not he wants to say something.
Yeah, Vince.
Okay. Probably not. Then, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah,
yeah.
let me share
The
something.
second topic I kept for this discussion between the service assurance and observability. And Sandeep wanted to ask Sandeep to give some inputs, but I think we have very limited time. So, Sandeep, would you like to cover and then go to the Stephen, and or would be okay if we directly jump? Sandeep?
Whatever Stephen like, I'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, Sandeep.
I mean, you want me to complete that?
Yeah, just try try to give some quick.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'll just
overview
finish like
and
fine. I mean, this is just about the synergy between the service assurance and observability. What we are doing, me, Stephen, Vim, and other people we are discussing about it for a long time. I'll just brief it up what we have done and what we have like. We have till now discussed many things. We have zeroed on the point that the scope of the observability is that collection. Okay, there will be a certain set of metrics will be provided during the kind of a deployment, and we will know that observability is on for certain NFs. That means we are supposed to capture and get some sort of a metrics from the NFs. That will be the starting point. Okay, that we know that these are the NF we have to get some sort of a KPI out of it, and these are the NF we don't have to get KPI out of it. That is one thing. Second thing is that we have consensus that there are few limitations in getting those information from the NF. That means we do not have any standards of getting the specific KPIs from all the NFs. There's no standard for that because it's all proprietary. And especially in 3.5GC, we haven't found that, as Stephen will tell you. But we have come up with some sort of a suggestion that we can do some sort of a POC to find some sort of a plugins or scraper web services, or you can say the sidecar mechanism where we put this kind of plugin which help us to collect the NF specific matrices by being in the same pod, same place where the actual NF is there, and then we hope to get some sort of a matrix out of it. So that is the second part of it. And for that, we hope to start the POC as soon as soon. But there are some objection or there are some limitation to this approach that we may not have. Like we will tell you that we may not have a lot of privileges in the actual deployment environment, but still we are going ahead with that and see, because this could be a kind of a reference implementation for us, and we will see how to go about it in another way. Third and fourth point is that we wish to collect all those information using some sort of open telemetry and Prometheus kind of a metric server, which can help us to configure the Prometheus node exporter, scraper web services, and all those things. And ultimately, we wish to get all this information in some sort of a data lake kind of thing, from where other pieces like assurance services, analytics can take up those data and do something out of it. What we have till now decided that, or we have agreed that action taking may not be the part of, will not be part of observability, and then it may go into the kind of a service assurance analytics part. So yeah, so that's the part as of now which we have discussed, right? And the integration point for us will be, I think, that when we get some sort of input from higher level saying that, okay, these are the KPIs I want to collect, and maybe kind of action and all those things when it comes, and how it wants to get those information from our data lake or maybe Prometheus server. And those are the points which we have to get agreement on, right? So I think in brief, that's all I can say. I can go more in detail, but I think we have only 15 minutes. So
yes.
Yes,
Sandeep. I'm sure it will take a good discussion. And thank you for your inputs. So I will jump directly to the our third point in the agenda. So yeah, Stephen, please take the stage or take the control.
Yeah, let me share.
Yes. Thank you.
Can you see the screen?
Still my screen is shared. Okay. I stopped sharing.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Stephen, we can see it.
Okay. Cool. So the NF topology controller is something that we're going to include on L2. In essence, this is a doc. I'm not going to go through the wording of the doc. In essence, what it is it gives a topology-centric input for users. And really, actually, we kind of look at that as a sample, which utilizes Nefio's primitives, and it kind of show you how we can build an application, if you will, on top of the Nefio primitives. So for OWL2, the topology controller basically, well, we define a NF topology set of CLDs. That obviously would be a package. When some inputs are given, the NF topology controller has two reconciling watchers inside. One of them watches the NF topology resources. What it does is it maps that input into a list of PBS, and then that would basically triggers the rest of them to actually work. And on the other side, it's actually watching the package revision object. Particularly, I ignore everything except it's approved. So that is used for updating statuses. So in that context, NF topology gives you a topological view, translate it into the primitives, and then at the end, it will tell you whether or not that's actually that particular network instance is slated for deployment. So we're not at this, for OWL2, we're not tracking whether or not that deployment has succeeded, has failed, has anything happened. I'll talk about that later because we basically doesn't really have that visibility at this point. So the CLD looks something like this. I don't know if the picture makes it better. It starts with the NF topology, which is basically just a list of NF instances. An instance is a template, if you will, inside. So it keys off of a cluster selector. So if you have a cluster that matches, let's say, a cluster type edge region, US West 1, then it would trigger the deployment of this particular specifications of the NF template. So it gives them a type, you point it to a package reference. So that's basically our equivalence of a class, because that basically points to what vendor and which versions of the NF package we're looking at. And then you input the capacities, and then you give us a list of attachments or interfaces that this particular network functions are expected to be on. Particularly the last one is interesting because one thing we do in this case is we define a network instance object which is empty. It has one field which is a name, which is a metadata field, but it's just a name, and that name gives us a key of whether or not some things are actually connected. And then this particular structure here is obviously when it watches the package revision object, it updates the status field by telling you that for this cluster, it self-generates an ID, so it's a little easier to see, because in connectivities, which obviously is the most important thing to display on the status, we would tell you exactly that this network function is connected to the other network functions explicitly. So in essence, an intent is a template, and then you wire the templates using an actual binded network, and then at the end we'll show you how many of that instances of that template are created, and how they're wired. So yeah, you guys can go over this. This is the PL. So to give you an example, my topology looks something like this, for example. So AMF connects to SMF A and B. In terms of each of them sub-topology are connected individually to UPF 1 and 2, UPF 3 and 4. The assumption here is UPF 3 and 4 are the same template, meaning that the N3 are connected to the same network, N6 on the same network. Obviously the N4 is on the same network. So that is expressed on the NF topology by doing something like this. You are defining that one, well, in 9 minutes, that one instance of network in here. So in this case, the AMF is one template, and one network instance template, which what it translates to is one single PBS. And then this SMF is another template. Although they're sharing the same network to connect to AMF, they're using a different network to connect to UPF. And therefore, because one of their network connectivities are different, they are two different templates. So two different instances, templates, or hence different PBS. And so in that particular case, you are, when a cluster matches, this SMFA get created. This network is binded. So we already know this network name is what we want to connect to. And then for this particular case, UPF template matches the cluster labels. An assumption is the N3 and N6 are also on the same network. In that case, UPF2 are also off the same template. And then they're automatically linked to the network. Today, topology doesn't dictate whether or not these two, which is off of the same template and same PBS, are connected to each other, because the connectivity means something like, oh, do you want to establish BGP pairs? Are they connected to the same virtual router or real routers, and things like this? That's the freedom of the actuations. At this point, what we're asking is, because this get generated from the same template, at the very least, the reachability between SMFA and UPF1 exists. So that's what we're asking. And I see a lot of hands. So yeah, go ahead, Sabash.
Yeah, I still can. I just wanted to ask, like, currently, whatever this topology you're showing, that is in workload cluster. So is it possible that in management cluster we collect those stats and or events?
That's a very good question. So this is the future stuff. So once we have observability, data lake, I guess, on what we agree on Monday, a piece of thing that sits on management cluster that manages all the collectors that are collecting. They would allow an API or if an OTel API even for topology to subscribe to a particular set of data, and then they will be able to get the statuses at the very least off of that. So there'll be a collection of the NF deployment status out of this, whatever format it is. We haven't actually finalized that, but I think Sandeep was in the meeting. Obviously, Wim was in the meeting.
Yeah.
We're talking about this as our first POC for observability. So as it turns out, observability will also be leveraging NS topology as the sample applications to kind of show that observability works for a particular use case. We obviously build frameworks to satisfy a use case. But I think for those of you guys who actually attended the summit, community is asking us to drive it by use case. I think that's a good thing to do, because observability could be a lot of stuff, and we don't want to boil the ocean. So we want to do it on a use case while perfecting is a very strong word, but improving the framework to satisfy those use cases.
So actually, this was the one part of the question. And the second part of what I wanted to ask, we are able to deploy the resource. We collected those stats there in the as a observability. Is it possible we from those stats we are able to correlate with intent or any
yes, it does.
high level topology?
So obviously the status. So we as Snefio right now basically operates on the in the granularity of a network function instance. So one thing that we talked about also on Monday/Tuesday for most of you guys actually was we at least would be able to correlate them on a network function instance basis. So a network function instance, let's say UPF for different vendors, maybe 6 to 10 pods on the network on the workload, and then we're collecting logs, hopefully traces, but probably not because we're not using PPF, and then unless they application natively support open tracing, that would be great too, and metrics obviously, and then we also, one network function deployment, NF deployment, represents one instance. So that status keys off of all the associated logs and everything would be a single delivery unit. If you want to, let's say, I want to get all the information about a network function in UPF. I want to get everything about UPF1 from time X to time Y. So they would be able to kind of give you that information. Is what we're thinking about.
Okay, so that means we could query to observability at high level also as a very granular level, also those queries we can do it, right?
I mean, the level that we can support, which at this point is network function instance.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, that would be. It's not like, oh, they give us everything about one single interface. Yeah, we're not that far.
Yeah, actually,
but then at
my
least,
point.
Yeah, at least the network
Yeah,
function instance. Yeah.
My point was just there could be some metadata like owner reference, and I should able to trace everything. I should able to understand the topology, how they are connected with the intent, and yeah, okay.
Yeah. So if you guys build something like on top of this, then you'll be able to see the topology. You'll be able to from there fetch all the information of the time intervals that you're interested in. According to one particular NF function within a topology. So if you want to, for example, get everything within this subtopologies, then you're getting all three of this within this same time period. And then you guys probably have analytic engines or whatever to kind of correlate even further and analyze the data. But then obviously for observability, we're only delivering data. We're not making opinions on the data.
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Bernard.
Okay, so a couple of things, and I believe we need more time for that. The relationships between the different entities might be of different nature. And therefore, sort of if I look at network interfaces, there could also be some kind of some false correlations which might be made because there might be components which are making use of the same subnet but are not actually really talking to one another. So I was just wondering if we need to be a little bit more specific about.
So today, as you can see for the network instance, it's pretty embarrassing. You know, when Wim and I sit together to build this, we were saying let's not define it yet. So at this point, it's basically just the name. We are not modeling the network yet, so we may do that, or Wim may do that as part of his interclustering, intercluster stuff anyway. So once we have this, then we obviously model in such a way that the access control that we want to do, the bandwidth, the latency requirements, all the high level specification of networking, we may actually model it moving forward. But at this point, it's just the name. So we'll
understood.
In fact, NF topologies will pass the name through PVS to lower layers to tell them that these NF are connected. But then how you interpret that connectivity, we haven't modeled it. But then obviously the name could be backed by a model, and then we probably will model that moving forward.
Okay, just imagine now that
the network. Bernard, the network is created, right? So we create the network, but we don't have constraints. So it's just a flat topology for now.
Yeah. So matching matching this to a network constraint, all this stuff is obviously.
What I mean is that there are certain communication patterns in 3GPP which simply say sort of which kind of components would talk to one another. And sort of, I just wanted to make sure that even if we're sort of having several network functions making use of the same subnet, that we're not sort of creating false correlations here. That was sort of one concern. And the other thing was related to sort of the relationships to the intent. So just imagine that someone says, I've got a high level intent 5G package, which I want to roll out. So sort of the operator basically is saying, I'm only knowing about the 5G sort of intent, which I've mentioned. And now it's being boiled down to AMF, SMF, etc. That means this relationship I would also want to see, because the reference point for the telco operator is going to be the 5G package. And if he sees something is wrong, then of course he would want to understand sort of what element was wrong and how does that correlate to which intent he has been issuing.
So we would update statuses, and we can make the statuses more complicated and have a little more work on the operator or some other.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to say I don't see in this picture the high level 5G sort of intent.
Oh yeah. If you build it on top of that, that's possible. You can build it directly on top of PVS and PVE if you want to. But then topology used to be a sample. There are folks that are interested to kind of use some part of that too. On Monday's SIG1 meetings, a gentleman was saying that the TMF integrations wanted to use topology, and he actually went all the way to my GitHub because I haven't checked the code yet. But then yes, it could be used. And then if we combine that with whatever we do with service assurance, it'll give higher visibilities and better analyses of narrow down what exactly gone wrong type stuff. But then obviously we're in a very early stage.
Sure. If you could add that would be definitely helpful, because again, from a telco operator perspective, we start with this high level intent, and now we have to drill it down, and this relationship definitely is needed in order to understand what's going on.
And even higher level intent. Okay.
Potentially, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think we talked to different telcos, And then some of them said that, oh, all I do is I give you US West, and then I want to support 1 million subscribers. Each of them has that kind of latency requirements and that kind of bandwidth requirements, and by an average. And then you go figure out, based on my hardware assets, how do you build clusters, how do you build all that stuff. I thought that's a little bit too high level, at least when
agree. Agree.
But in any case, so it's 1 minute after. So if any, obviously this is only an introductory session. So hopefully that answers some of the questions.
Yeah, if you send around the link again, that would be nice, and then we can follow up on that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen, for giving us the time. And yeah, I think we are just close to more minutes. Okay, so we had a very good discussion. So let's wind our meeting. And thank you, everyone. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.